Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
Shalom.
Shalom.
So in this week's Torah, where we are standing and looking into the Promised Land, and we're looking back at our time and the time of our parents, B'midbar, in the wilderness. You know, we were in the wilderness for 40 years, and a generation passed, and we are now just realizing it. Time is like that in the wilderness, between one place and another. It feels infinite, as if we will be in this in-between place forever. Strangely, while Torah has a lot to say about our first moments in the wilderness, the times we failed, when we recovered, the majority of the moments in between are simply left out. About 38 years of moments, give or take. And so we have to search for clues to understand what it might have been like. What helped the Israelites during that whole time? What helped them remember what was important? What might help us? Because these moments in the desert are the moments we are most interested in now, isn't it? It's true. We too are looking for clues as how to live in an in-between time. Famously, unlike now, in B'midbar, in the wilderness, we get a lot of what we need directly from God. There's a lot of miracles. For example, God postmates manna, food, right to our camps. And the rabbis are sure we always smelled fresh. They think about this. They say we rolled in the plants and spices that grew in the wilderness. It's maybe not the most dignified miracle, but certainly not one that should be overlooked. And yet we learn maybe the most important thing in the desert was not guaranteed: water. Yes, for the majority of the time, the rabbis say there was a well that accompanied us through the desert, through the wilderness, the well of Miriam. But when Miriam dies, the well goes away with her, and at the end, we are left without secure water in the wilderness. What do? It's funny, we don't complain like we do on all the other times. Instead, in this moment, there's a strange fragment of a verse, and it's in the middle of what looks to be a travel itinerary. You see, we, the Israelites, we go to a place named Be'er, literally well. And it's a place where God instructs Moses to get us together so that God could give us the water. But when we get to Be'er, when we get to well, no active water is given or appears like in some of the other places. No instructions in how to get the water. Instead, all that happens, and it's so strange, is we, Israel, we sing a song. We sing a cryptic song to an imaginary well, and then the well seems to emerge. Then Torah tells us, or maybe we sing it in our song, it's hard to tell, that maybe the well was dug previously by some unnamed princes and nobles. It's all very strange, and it raises some questions, like if the place we're going is named Be'er Well, and there was a well there to begin with, dug by nobles and princes, and God told those people, and God told us to assemble to get the water, why do we have to sing? Nowhere else in the Torah do we sing to a well to bring it into being. Sometimes we have to dig a well, but in Torah, maybe in Midrash we sing, but in Torah we don't sing for a well. In fact, in Torah, it's interesting, we don't usually sing at all. And the rabbis noticed the last time we sang a song in Torah was, you guessed it, 38 years ago when we crossed the sea. Not only that, but the song that we sing, if we could call it that, especially compared to the song at the sea, where everyone following Moses sang to God in synchronistic iambic pentameter, the song here, by contrast, is just a fragment, a tiny bit, an opening. Ali ve'er anula. Spring up, O well. Ali ve'er. Anula. We sing to it. That's the whole song. And even if you include the part in the next verse about the well being dug by the princes and nobles, it's still not very descriptive. What is going on here? What do we learn about surviving in the wilderness for a long time from this cryptic song and this moment? Well, maybe we could start by saying that perhaps the short length of the song says something about the wilderness itself, their moment and ours, doesn't it? That is to say, even if you are traveling to a place called well, and even if you've had a well follow you your whole life, in the wilderness, we feel that well might easily disappear. See, the wilderness makes us less sure of ourselves. It's like traveling at night in a faraway place. And maybe even if we too saw a sign that says, well here, welcome to Well Town, stay at the Well Hotel, we still might not trust that the well was really still there. See, in the wilderness, the things that under normal circumstances we take for granted, the necessities, here Bamidbar in the wilderness, those necessities can become occasions for great relief. We don't take them for granted. So perhaps on the simplest level, even though God told us, as God had told us many times, there would be water there, even though the name of the place was Be'er, well, the wilderness had worn us down so much, we were so scared and cynical that we were still surprised and relieved to receive this water. The well felt like the very first miracle we had ever received. And so once the well started to open and reveal itself, we sang out of true relief and gratitude. Maybe this song is because perhaps we were just out of breath from the release and the wonder that it was still really there. So we skipped the formalities and the harmonies in order to take long, cool drinks. We shortened the song so that we could drink some more. And like the many blessings that matter, the ones our lives depend on, like the ones that take place in the hospital rooms, and after the close calls, the words were stilted and simple. Aliva er anula. Spring up, oh well, please just keep springing and we will sing to you. See, maybe the song was a song of relief. Because even in the wilderness, especially in the wilderness, we can still be thankful for our lives. Or maybe the song is sparse and truncated because in the face of ongoing wilderness, a generation's long time in the wilderness, Israel was silenced by the raw magnitude and the vast architecture of the desert itself, of the natural world. Maybe we were in awe and fear of the midbar, of the wilderness, of the creation. Maybe in this small song, the rabbis suggest Israel's actually praying to the earth to care for us. It's true, the rabbis say that. We're not praying to God, we're praying to the earth to care for us. In other words, in that moment, we recognized our utter dependence on the earth. See, they understood without a relationship with the earth, without honoring the earth's seasons and topography, they will die in the desert. And perhaps this song, if we were to sing it today, could bring us to the same recognition of the majesty of the natural world, could bring us to recognition of our dependence on the planet, the earth's ability to care for us or destroy us. Maybe this year, this song could be the beginning of our prayer, asking for forgiveness from the earth and from our God who created it for how we've done so far. Maybe this song could be the beginning of our admission that restraint and obligation, not to mention science, that's what will make the miracles now, the great miracle of healing our planet. Maybe I'm thinking in moments like theirs and ours, a long and complex song is not what's required. Rather, when there's such a great breach, such a vast distance across from where we are to where we need to be, we instead begin with remorse and humility, fewer words, silence. So maybe it's not that their song trails off. Rather, in their moment and our moment, we realize there can be no words beyond. We raise our voices to you, O well. And then we're quiet, remembering that the mouth of the well was created long before any of us, at the twilight of creation. And our lives, both then and now, depend on our ability to care for this well and understand that we and it live in much larger systems. So maybe the song is the one that stops short and listens to the wilderness that surrounds us all. It's a song that prays to the earth. Or maybe it's not a song at all. I know it says we sang, but maybe there's no fully accurate word for what it was we were doing, because you see, when the rabbis teach about this song, usually they relate it to the other songs, Joshua's song, Song of Solomon, Crossing the Sea, like I said earlier, but the Kedushat Levi relates this moment not to singing, but instead to crying. He says it's similar to when we were escaping Egypt and Pharaoh was chasing us. V'yitzaku v'nei Yisrael, and we the children cried out in fear. Perhaps he suggests we weren't singing to the well, but crying out to God in desperation to be saved. I wonder, maybe there are not many words recorded on this song because it is the sound of us pleading and hitting bottom, and these things cannot be captured in words. And then we remember back when Hagar was cast alone into the desert with her young son. And we know that when the meager ration of water she was given runs out, and she was despondent and desperate and thirsty, she cries and raises her voice. And it is that crying out, not any words, that brings the angel who tells us to open her eyes. And there, just like in our story, Bamidbar, in the wilderness, just like in our story, is a well. And according to one midrash, Hagar didn't know, but she was standing right on top of that well. It was under the ground, exactly where she was standing. It was just that, like us in the wilderness, she had to cry to find it. Maybe there's a version of singing this song that is really crying for everything that has gone wrong in the wilderness, crying for all that seems that it cannot be fixed by us alone, crying out of fear, crying to God, crying for help. Maybe when we are in the desert and we cannot see any water, when the wilderness or our enemies or the accumulation of all the betrayals we have suffered seems to overtake us, we learn the only song left is the one that cries for all that is lost and all that seems lost. And only then can we begin to remember the wells right underneath us. And I have one last interpretation. Bamidbar, in the wilderness, we're in the wilderness and we have much less by way of distraction. We can't run and hide from relationships. We can't escape from mistakes. There's nowhere to go. You'll notice that only 36 verses earlier, we were also quite thirsty. And God tells Moses famously to strike a rock to get water for Israel. And Moses does not strike the rock gently or with faith or with particular love of the Israelites who are frantic and complaining once again. He strikes with anger, and he calls the people cruel names, and he breaks trust with people and with God. And God says Moses degrades the holy name by performing this miracle in such an abusive way. Why am I telling you this? Because the tradition says that Moshe hitting that rock, and this place we're in right now, Be'er, well, the place of the stopped up well, what do you know? It's the same place. So when we're singing our song to the closed well, and notice Moses is not singing, and we are singing for the well to open, and recounting in the song how the well was once dug by princes and nobility. The tradition says Moses and Aaron were those princes. So you get it, we're singing our song as if to say, Moses, you are the one who can open this well in the right way. You made a mistake, but you are the prince. Here is another chance. In other words, maybe our song links the two stories. The song story of what happened when Moses struck the rock and the rupture, and the song story of what might be a song of tshuva, a song of return, a song redo, a tikkun, a repair. See, instead of only singing about the past, this religious song allows us to see what happened before as an opportunity for repairing something new now. See, this religious song knows that a well that is covered up can always be opened again. And we remember, no matter what has been destroyed, how barren it all seems now. In Torah, after we sing that song, we go from Bamidbar Umatana, from the barren wilderness to a place that is literally named the gift. So may it be for us. May whatever we're enduring now, Bamidbar, in the desert, create the beginnings of songs that tie the old world and the new world together. Great gifts, Nachalim ba'arava, streams in the wilderness.